Working out is great. I think everybody should do it. But what it gave for me was something I couldn't purchase, something I couldn't steal, something I couldn't do or grasp by any other means other than hard work, dedication, scheduling, and like planning those types of things. And it gave me this overall sense of like purpose and direction, which I had none of.
Welcome to the Wealth Strategy Secrets of the Ultra Wealthy podcast, where we help entrepreneurs like you exponentially build wealth through passive income to live a life of freedom and prosperity. Are you tired of paying too much in taxes, gambling your future on the stock market, and want to learn about hidden strategies for making your money work for you? And now your host, Dave Wolcott, serial entrepreneur and author of the best-selling book, The Holistic Wealth Strategy.
Hey everyone, welcome to today's show on Wealth Strategy Secrets. Our next guest is Dustin Baker. Dustin is a seasoned health and fitness entrepreneur, and he's aiming to revolutionize the natural wellness industry. He even collaborates with athletes, medical professionals, and military personnel, and has developed an innovative substitute for prescription human growth hormone and peptide therapies. He also prioritizes safety and effectiveness in product development and leads a product called BioPro, which is recognized as a groundbreaking solution for enhanced vitality and longevity. Those are definitely some of my favorite subjects, Dustin, and really looking forward to having this discussion with you today and sharing with the listeners, some of the ways that you're really focusing on, vitality, longevity, health. It's such an amazing place. And I think most of us are really looking to, not just be average in life, but get the most out of, your health, being fully optimized. And it's interesting because if you start to see certain people like take a look at Jeff Bezos, right? From 20 years ago when he started Amazon to take a look at him now where he's living in Miami and, just completely optimized. I mean, he's taking peptides. He is doing the latest and greatest things. And I think we all need to do that. And it all starts with education. So appreciate you being on the show and, look forward to this discussion.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate the intro. It was, it probably makes me sound way cooler than I really am, but it was a phenomenal introduction. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, you bet. So, before we kind of jump into a little bit of, what you're doing now, can you tell us about your story and your journey? Did you have kind of a pain to purpose type story, or really, how did it all start for you?
Well, a lot of times I get asked like, hey, how did I choose this industry? Or, how did I get into the hormone space, the medical space? And I will tell you that it pretty much kind of just chose me. I did not go to school for this. I hardly went to school at all. I can barely read or write, let alone do what I'm doing now. But I say that as a joke. But I grew up very similar to probably a lot of people. I grew up in a single parent household, health, wellness, fitness, nutrition, that kind of stuff was probably the last thing that we were really concerned about. I think most of the times we were just concerned about having enough gas in the car to get to school and for my mom to get to work. So as a kid, things like health, wellness, all that kind of stuff, it was almost really non-existent. And not to say anything poor about my parents, my mother's a phenomenal mother. She killed herself to send us to the best schools we could and to keep food on the table. But when you have poor habits as children, whether that's food habits, television habits, all of those things, you're left to your own devices in a lot of respects. They can manifest themselves as poor habits as an adult. And they surely did for me, right? So, you enter into your late teens, early 20s, you're supposed to be forging your way in the world and you find yourself, drinking or partying or doing, all kinds of awful things. And those things compound. And one day I had a friend who kind of stepped in to my life in my early 20s when I had, long dropped out of, college and different things like this. And he was like, hey, why don't you come to the gym with me? Why don't you stop doing what you're doing? Which was basically nothing I was doing anyway. And I did. And that one day, little did I know, would kind of create this snowball effect for the rest of my life and career. And what I learned was that day is, working out is working out. It's great. I think everybody should do it. But what it gave for me was something I couldn't purchase, something I couldn't steal, something I couldn't, do or grasp by any other means other than hard work, dedication, scheduling, and like planning those types of things. And it gave me this overall sense of like purpose and direction, which I had none of. And that led me on to, my first job or career, you could say, and cleaning gyms, taking out garbage. I mean, doing whatever I could to be under the tutelage of certain individuals who ran performance facilities. And, one thing led to another, taking over facilities. I got picked up by a national franchise through their director of head and sales and marketing here in Tampa, which trained professional athletes in football and college prep and combine prep and all that kind of stuff. And one of these things just led to another. And during all of these different business ventures I was involved in, I had found these formulas from a small lab here in Florida, which I like very much. I threaded them into the different businesses. I used them for individuals who were in midlife, just trying to regain their fitness and control of their lives, really, to professional athletes who were training in the off season and going into season, and everything in between. They worked incredibly well. Showed every kind of effectiveness we could. They were extremely safe. They weren't harmful or causing any type of drug tests or drug reactions. So we can continue to use them. Eventually, I was exiting one business venture and looking for my next move, and decided to just approach the company that made them, because it was a very small regional company, and said, hey, why don't you just let us do it? And we're going to take it to the rest of the world. And we did that in 2018, and, basically wrote him a check, had a deal, took everything. And then now we're in over 40 different countries and have physicians who recommend and provide our products from here to Canada to South Africa and all over the place.
Wow. Yeah. Very interesting how, that stories really evolve, and, you see those, different forks in the road that kind of lead you down a different path. And I have a similar, background. I mean, in terms of, sports and really, looking at health, really like optimization. I did Ironman. I was in the Marine Corps. And, I started running. I never ran at all, but I had to in the Marines. And then before you know it, became the next 10K, which became a half marathon, became a marathon. And then, then it's, adventure races, Ironman, all these kind of things. But, I've been constantly seeking to really optimize my health. And now that's really, evolved, right, in further on decades as to, how can I live, such a quality life, right? How can I increase my energy so that I bring, 10x more energy to my family, to my clients, to, the
Sure.
people I'm trying to create impact with. So it's really interesting how that all evolves. So can you tell us a little bit about the product specifically? Like, how does it work? What are some of the things that it can help with?
Yeah, and I like to take a step back and not even discuss or get into the product without understanding kind of how our bodies and our physiology actually works, and why, trying to grab on or trying to increase energy and trying to be optimized is such a big deal. We work in the area of hormonal decline and endocrinology. So hormone replacements, hormone treatments, as you said earlier, you talked about testosterone therapy and peptides and stuff like that. So the body has master hormones. We focus on growth hormone specifically. It's the master hormone for metabolic function, sexual function, energy, mood, muscle function, so lean muscle mass, all kinds of fun stuff like that. The issue is that it decreases as soon as you finish puberty. It starts to go down. So, and every year after that, sometimes by 50% by the age 35. So what's cool about growth hormone is that before the body ever even uses it, it has to be converted by the liver into what are called growth factors. So growth factors are simply cellular signals. They get sent out into the blood to trigger cellular change, whether that's the cells in your skin, in your face, whether that's the cells in your muscle tissue, whether that's cells to actually literally heal a knife wound, right? Like a flesh wound. It's growth factors that trigger this response. So the reason why your skin starts to sag, or you start to atrophy muscle, which is the loss of muscle as you age, or things like sexual function and energy start to decline, is your body's making less of the hormone that creates these cell signals. So if the cell signals are not being created as fast as your cells die off, because the cell signals are simply triggering their multiplication and differentiation, which is cellular reproduction, right? That's why you start to deteriorate. That's why your energy starts to go down. That's why you start to store more body fat. That's why your muscle starts to decrease. Your workouts might not work the same as they used to before. Your energy starts to go down. So what we do is, instead of injecting you like a human with a synthetic hormone replacement drug, which is not natural in any sense of the word, or manipulating the actual glandular function that creates the hormone itself, why wouldn't you just take the end result, the cell signals, which technically are just proteins? They're complex amino acid chains, and they occur naturally. So if you can just take those and stimulate the cell synapse, the cellular signals, why not do that instead of manipulating all of your endocrine system, right? All of your hormone systems. So that's all that we do. We bypass all of the synthetic drugs or the synthetic interjection, and we just give you the protein amino acid change directly. So your body doesn't actually notice anything different. They're molecularly identical to what your body produces, so it doesn't cause any adverse events. There's hardly any risk whatsoever because of the nature of the product. Because they're technically proteins, your body will simply excrete what it does not use, and it doesn't incur any negative side effects in doing so.
Interesting. So that sounds very similar to peptides. So how does that relate?
It is similar to peptides, 100%.
Yeah.
But the difference is peptides are a synthetically created chain of amino acids. They don't naturally occur in nature, right? They're a separate chain. So they're in the growth hormone space. They're called secretagogues, meaning they're not necessarily a hormone replacement. Okay. What they're doing is they're manipulating the glandular function of the gland that creates the hormone. Think of it like a lemon. It's pressing it to squeeze more of that hormone out. Now, is that better than, say, the injection? That depends who you speak to. Maybe. Okay. The issue is you're still synthetically manipulating the glandular function itself. It's still going to incur a side effect, whether that's what's called negative feedback loop. So the actual shutting down of your natural production. There's long-term downstream effects of constantly basically squeezing the pituitary for long extended periods of time when you're synthetically starting that. So peptides were originally only created to be used for about 3 weeks. And I'm talking specifically about growth hormone secretagogue peptides. The word peptide is a general term that can be used for several different drugs that are utilizing similar, we'll use the word science for lack of a better term, or methods. But in the growth hormone space with secretagogues, which you are still after those growth factors, they're only supposed to be prescribed for several weeks, and then you would stop. And the reason being is because there are negative side effects associated with long-term use, because you're still synthetically manipulating your hormonal function. What happened is that they work very well. Do they work for everyone? No product does, not even ours. But the certain medical boards and the FDA steps in and says, hey, you're not supposed to do this. This is not why they were created. And when you start to use a drug outside of why it was originally approved or created, that's called off-label use. And eventually, if off-label use goes too far outside of control, or it starts to become what the government would consider a problem, they typically start to step in a few times. And then eventually they do what they did last year, which was, they had said, hey, enough is enough. You guys need to stop doing this. Let's get back in the reins here. And no one did. And so they scheduled them as a what would be called a class 2 and, or a schedule 2, I should say. And they're no longer allowed to be used off label. And now their doctors are scrambling all over the place to figure out how to replace their revenue streams for these drugs, but also to replace their supply, which I'll be honest with you, the government did half my job, probably more, by creating a massive vacuum of lack of product where we fit into the place. And we've just been getting sucked up by the people looking to replace that revenue stream in drugs. So it's actually been pretty awesome, to be honest with you, Dave.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. One of the things I learned, Dustin, I think that's, super interesting, is basically that as men, and I don't know, maybe you can speak to women more. I can't, I'm not really,
I get pulled into
I don't
that
have
a
that
lot too, and I was like,
expertise
I'm not a
there,
woman,
right?
but I will do my best. Yes, I
Yeah,
understand.
if you can comment on that one, but in terms of men's health, what was really surprising to me is how much we are losing testosterone in this day and age, right? Because of so many things like endocrine disruptors that are out there,
Sure.
all the toxins that we live in. Like, we have so many technological advantages in this day and age. However, our health is really suffering, and I think it's taking a toll. And I think, frankly, most people just don't even realize what's happening. So all of those benefits or, reasons, why you would get into that, I don't even think people are correlating, that's it, right? Unless you actually test, for your
Sure.
testosterone levels, right? And see where you're at. And then the second dimension to this that I find really interesting, Dustin, is that the average mean that's being collected for what are considered, quote unquote, good testosterone levels, like that consensus group level keeps shifting and shifting, keeps
Correct.
getting lower and lower.
Correct.
Right. So what a doctor might say is, hey, you're in a good range. We're actually way far from that range.
100%. Absolutely. I mean, you're spot on. You're speaking for me. I mean, literally, we speak the exact same language. The studies are very clear. I believe there was a 2021 study that clearly analyzed the overall hormone levels, specifically with testosterone of men, and they have found that a 20-something, it was like a 20-year-old in today's day and age, has the exact same hormone level as a 67-year-old male from the year 2000. So the rate of decline is quite extreme. That being said, there was a study that came out, and I believe it was around November, December of last year as well, in a UK study where it was a mathematical study. So what they're doing is they're collecting the data and then, a mathematical equation to track the rate of hormonal decline. And they have found that in the United Kingdom, and again, it's speculative, but the data is data, it's math. They have found that 100% of the males in the United Kingdom will be infertile by the year 2043. Now, they literally will not be able to procreate without some sort of a medical intervention. The science is quite clear. It's, along with technology, anytime you try and do all kinds of fun stuff with technology, you're typically going to incur some sort of a side effect or risk factor, right? So as you increase the type of, I mean, even Wi-Fi, dude, Wi-Fi is great, but you're absorbing some sort of a radio signal, and you talk about 5G, you're absorbing some sort of a radiation that at this point is decided that it's healthy, yet we always find out 100 years later that it's not. So, I mean, those are things that are completely outside of your control. Every type of ingredient, modern ingredient that we add to our food products to maintain their stability longer, even in drugs and in natural, quote unquote, holistic products, you look at preservatives and different things that, might keep the product longer and make it, more widely available for use. But again, incur some sort of a side effect. Many times hormonal disruption is part of it. I mean, I don't know what your shirt's made of, but I know what mine's made of. And I know that there's some level of polyester or plastic, basically. It's just a nice name for plastic inside of your shirt. That there's been studies done where they put guys in 100% polyester underwear and render them completely infertile, of a sperm count of 0 within several months. So it's, it is what it is. It's the idea is to mitigate the outside interference as best you can. I also have found, and this is a personal opinion, that there's only so much you can do. And the added level of stress or heightened level of cortisol is freaking out about, every little thing as well is also terrible for your endocrine system and your hormonal secretion and release. So there's a very happy medium of personally happy and living a life that is, productive and not overly stressed and not out of control, but to mitigate the damages as best you can.
Everything you thought you knew about investing was wrong. Would you like to create a wealth strategy like the top 1% have and get exclusive access to top private equity deals that provide downside protection, tax efficiency, predictable cash flow, and have a lucrative upside? Discover how with the Pantheon Advantage and join our investor club today at pantheoninvest.com. bioprotein.com.
Yeah. I mean, what are you doing personally in terms of trying to, prevent, some of these disruptors that are there, right? I mean, whether it's,
Sure.
biohacking techniques or whatever, what types of things are you employing?
So I mean, we just talked about clothes. I've really loved getting into the bamboo clothing. I think bamboo is, if you haven't worn bamboo clothing, which is, unplastic related, dude, I mean, forget the help it does for your endocrine system, but bamboo is the most comfortable stuff you're going to ever wear. So that's an easy one. I think the most overlooked, and it sounds so simple and people are like, oh yeah, I get it. Well, do you? But the most overlooked part of hormone optimization, forget all the products, right? We sell products. I own a company that sells products. There's all kinds of stuff out there. Awesome. Forget all that. Is sleep number one. Okay. So 70 to 90% of your hormone secretion is, especially for men, is during 2 deep sleep cycles in your sleep. SWS, slow wave sleep, and REM sleep. Okay. And you should be spending about an hour at least in each one of those sleep cycles. Most people spend probably about 15 to 20 minutes. And that's disastrous. Okay. Disastrous. When they test for erectile dysfunction, because we do very well in the sexual function space, they strap a meter to your leg to test your femoral artery during sleep. They test your sleep cycles. Sleep is absolutely most important. So if you can improve your sleep, if you do not track it, highly recommend to go track it. If you want to go buy a wearable or a Whoop or an Oura Ring, whatever. I have no business connection to any of those, but they're great products. You will be able to see really how serious sleep is, or how low you're getting, or how good your sleep is. I very rarely is someone just always getting really good sleep that isn't tracking it. It's like food. If you don't track it, you don't know. So sleep is a huge thing. If you change your sleep, that's basically, if you get bad sleep and you change it for the better, that's like being on, a phenomenal steroid. That's the cheapest, best performance enhancement drug you could possibly do. So that is what we always recommend. I love apps and devices like a Whoop that give you quantifiable metrics, because if it doesn't get measured, it doesn't get done. That's in anything, right? So being able to measure your sleep is a huge deal. If you're even waking up more than once a night, you're probably disrupting your natural hormone secretion. So that's a huge deal. Fix your sleep. You can fix almost anything. Workouts. It sounds, very elementary, but it's very true. As a guy who came from the sports world and worked out with pros and prided himself on 2.5 hour workouts and sticking with, I was never a pro athlete, dude. I've never taken a snap of football in my life. I was from the business side. So, prided myself on trying to work out with pros, guys that are in their 20s, and stick with them for hours and hours. The best thing I did as I was aging and as my business became more of the focus instead of my, my personal attributes and stuff like that, was auditing my workouts. And what I have found is, especially with men, it's not about 2-hour long workouts. It's about the workout that you can do every day, right? So shortening those workouts for me was one of the hardest things that I ever did, but actually probably one of the best things I ever did, because now I enjoy working out again. They get done all the time. I take breaks like everybody else, but they get done pretty much every day, 45 minutes. Some workouts are 20 to 30 minutes a day. That's it. But they get done consistently. And I focus on high intensity interval training, very specific rest sets in between my working sets, because high intensity interval training is absolutely proven repeatedly to spur growth hormone secretion. So growth hormone is a what's called a pulsating hormone. You can stimulate its secretion and its release into the bloodstream. So high intensity interval training, which simply means extreme bouts of output. So let's say 70 to 90% of your physical output. Like, it should suck. It should be tough for X amount of time. Let's say beginners, 20 seconds. Let's say, you're balling out of control, 45 seconds, and then equal or less amount of time of rest in between those intervals for, let's just say 30 minutes, which is great. That's really awesome. Can spur growth hormone itself. So that is like a phenomenal, cheap, free anti-aging drug right there, because growth hormone is about $3,000 to $10,000 a month in the United States. So, have your fill of high intensity interval training. And then nutrition and hydration is absolutely key, right? This is all elementary stuff, but again, if you don't measure it, you're probably, deficient. So a normal human being should have half ounce to 3/4 ounce per pound of body weight of actual water and hydration. If you're an athlete, you and I live in Florida. If you're working out here during summer months, it should probably be well over an ounce because of how much you're actually perspiring and sweating. If you're a high level athlete, it's the very same thing. Ounce per pound of body weight a day. It sounds like a ton of water. It is what it is. Don't hate meat, hate your physiology. So that's a big one. And then nutrition. If it doesn't get tracked, if it doesn't get measured, it doesn't exist. So I'm a big fan of, I do macronutrients, but I do macronutrients with whole foods and making sure I'm properly fueled. The last two, and then I'll shut up. The reason why they're so important is because if you are deficient hydration wise, nutrition wise, your body is not able to function properly. It will spur the hormone cortisol, which is basically the antithesis of growth hormone and testosterone. So if cortisol is existing at elevated levels in your body continuously, it has its place during each day, but it's for a short duration. It will blunt your body's ability to secrete testosterone and growth hormone. So basically you're at a cortisol high level, which is going to it's going to destroy everything. It's going to destroy your sexual function. So low libido. It's going to add specifically body fat. Typically we see that around the waist area, around the belly section. We call that stress fat. It's just going to kill you faster, literally, scientifically. So those are cheap, free things. Don't buy anybody else's stuff, mine included. Don't buy it. Go do those things first, and then go talk to somebody.
Yeah, so many good points there, Dustin. I've been using an Oura ring for a couple of years now, and it's interesting. You'd think like, okay, you get it by now, but every day, every week, like I'm just really trying to analyze trends. And really, I think it just gives you such, invaluable insights as to, okay, how can I really optimize that sleep, right? Because, you put it so well, right, as how important sleep really is, to your hormone system and really to everything. But yet most of us really do a lot of things to destroy that sleep. So everything from red light glasses at night, so your melatonin, right, can actually, move into the proper state, daylight in the first thing in the morning, your sleep wake schedule, all those things. And alcohol is amazing too. Even that one glass of wine, what that does to your sleep.
What everybody says. That is what everybody says is when they start to track their sleep, they don't realize how much even just one drink completely destroys their sleep cycles. But yes, I've heard that so many times, and it's the same thing. It just is what it is. Alcohol and sleep narcotics, they don't necessarily improve your deep sleep cycles, right? All they're doing is rendering you unconscious, which is not actual sleep.
Interesting. And how about the effect? Is there any difference between anabolic and catabolic workouts?
Catabolic workouts would mean they would be eating. So
strength training versus
so anabolic versus aerobic work training. Okay. So anabolic versus aerobic training. So both of them I like to do in high intensity. Okay, but I'm just very particular of all of my experience in training, and I've owned fitness facilities. I've created methodologies, right, that were very successful for certain populaces, which was my whole career. I'll be honest with you, every dollar I've made, real dollar, and most of all my career is we've identified basically the individual who's 44 years old, typically a high income earner, some sort of a business owner, et cetera, et cetera. And the reason why is because these individuals spend their whole life building their businesses, their families, taking care of their kids, and then wake up 40, 44 years old. And they don't look like they used to in the mirror. They don't feel like they used to in the mirror. And, they want that back. I totally get it. I'm no different than anybody else. When it comes to that type of population, the weight training is absolutely paramount. The reason why some sort of resistance, right, is paramount because the more amount of lean muscle mass you have, and I'm not saying bodybuilders, there's a threshold here, but the higher amount of lean muscle mass that you have actually can correlate to the length of the lifespan of the individual, for a multitude of different reasons. There's less disease found in individuals who have a higher lean muscle mass than not. So take that for what you will. When it comes to weight training or aerobic training, I like to this is a personal belief system and something that I use for consistency. And for output, and I can explain it in performance terms if you'd like. But I'm very particular in weight training because you can never replace your compound lifts, your squat, your press, and your pulls. But what you can manipulate is the rest intervals in between to change how your cardio system, your heart rate reacts to those different sets. I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but manipulating that time frame is so much more important to me than the actual weight itself, because you can make 95 pounds feel like 500 pounds very quickly when you eliminate the rest intervals in between each set. So if you haven't, really focused on that, I would highly recommend it, especially for endurance athletes, performance athletes who need explosiveness, fast twitch muscle fibers, who work in what's called the glycolytic phase. Glycolytic phase is your high output for shorter periods of time. But anyway, I think you get a lot more bang for your buck out of something like that. I think the weight training or heavy weightlifting with massive amounts of rest time in between is kind of very compartmentalized in that competitive space who only does those things. So I have never recommended it for individuals of any type of a performance athlete, because you still will increase strength gains doing it with a shorter rest interval. I'm going to stop right there because I could just, I'll just continue to go on and go on and go on.
No, I think, exercise physiology is really fascinating. And again, we all have limited time, right? So it's all about optimization. And again, I find myself, so at 54 now, I find myself with kind of just changing a bit of the objective of, why am I training? The purpose for, my training, what I'm living for. And, I really like training. It was never about the events for me. I just like to work hard. I like to exercise, all of the benefits that it has. But it's interesting because now, you're not working up, you're not peaking to some type of event, whatever your sport is. It's more like, you're trying to just have this, sustainability in life, right? That you can do all the things that you want to do. And then, in later years, you want to be picking up your grandkids and, going 100%. Hiking with them and all those kind of things. So that kind of changes. What do you think in terms of also, kind of minimum and maximum effective dose of training? Because I find that interesting, like Dave Asprey talks a lot about, the Carol bike and, doing some, you can get so many benefits, in a 10-minute workout, right? Doing kind of high interval type stuff versus, as an endurance athlete, I mean, I'm used to going out. I mean, I did 120 miles on the bike this weekend. Sure. So, we're putting in hours and hours of work, but I would imagine there's really a minimum effective dose. And frankly, there's probably a maximum effective dose that if you're training too much, there are some detrimental effects. Like you said, like the cortisol is increasing. 100%. You've also got oxidative stress going on. So,
well, that is a very individualized answer. So it's subjective to the individual and what their specific goals are. So if you're looking at a human being, you have to take into account several things. First being, what are their specific goals, right? Are they you're talking about races. So are you trying to hit a very specific time that you have in mind? Or are you trying to hit a specific weight that you have in mind? When you're talking about really personalized training, then you have to take those goals and you have to audit the individual's caloric input. Okay, so the fastest way to overtraining is to not be able to actually fuel your performance itself. And I think a lot of people get this part massively wrong. They either think they can eat whatever they want, and then because they're working out real hard, or they have a mixed idea of what their goals are because they want to look a certain way, but they want to perform a certain way. And then you get into the too far the caloric deficit part, and it destroys all kinds of stuff, and you'll feel like crap. So when it comes to, is there a maximum dose or a minimum dose, it really depends on the goals of the individual. What I will tell you is, with the older that you get, the shorter, and I'm not saying to zero because we're talking about minimum dose, but the older you get, the more the shorter your workouts should probably become. And I used the example earlier of I would train with these guys. I used to train with a lot of CFL, Canadian Football League, and NFL guys in the off season. Okay. And these weight training programs were extremely long, extremely long. I look back and I can't even believe why was I doing this? Right. And they were, this was at least 90 minutes to 2 hours. And I'm like saying, if you're going through, relatively quickly, of weight training, and then they hit the field for speed training, or sometimes there's times in between. And it's like, as you age, there's no way physiology, or there's no way physically you should probably be able to keep up with that. So as I got older, those times needed to go shorter, because the fastest way to see if you're like overtraining isn't necessarily soreness. It's complete lack of motivation. It's a mental thing almost. It's a complete lack of motivation. You have to just pull yourself out of bed to get up and to start doing things, or to get into the gym. Your libido will immediately start to decrease. I mean, for men especially, your libido goes so fast when you start to go into overtraining. It's freakish how fast. And we see this, we work very heavily in the combat sports space. And if you've ever watched or been involved in combat sports and seen what fighters go through about a couple weeks out from a fight to drain, they have to drop 25 pounds and train 2, 3, 4 times a day, sparring, training, whatever that is. They absolutely destroy their hormone levels. I mean, it's actually, to see blood work, it's almost like, dude, you're 28 years old. This is bad. So when you're looking at a maximum dose, you have to take in, and remember, what doesn't get measured doesn't get done. So you have to set quantifiable metrics of how far is too far, how do you feel, how's your body responding, to put those metrics in place: libido, energy, motivation, drive, finding out kind of how far you can push it to that. And then that's pretty much probably going to be your maximum level, as opposed to your minimum level, which is you don't find really in any type of competitive athlete a minimum level to keep their focus, because they're competitive in nature. It's not really an issue. But I would say, again, a minimum level would be determined upon the goals of the individual. Are they just old and they just want to be able to move and they don't want to be stiff? Then yes. I mean, you got to do, typically it's at least something 3 times a week with some sort of intensity. Walking around the block does not count. You need some sort of an intensity to constantly push your body into into a workout zone. It has to be pushed. It has to be there should be some sort of resistance, some sort of friction, right? And I'm not just talking about resistance training. I'm saying some sort of an effort that you must put in, some sort of a mental friction that you're going to hit. That means you're doing some sort of an exertion in a workout. Otherwise, walking around the block is not a workout. That's normal life. And I don't have any problem just saying that. You should be able to walk around the block. But when it comes to minimum workouts, at least 3 times a week, dude, 20 minutes at a high intensity interval training 3 times a week can actually be extremely effective if the program is done properly.
Very good. What does your morning routine look like, Dustin?
I'm a pretty lucky guy. My morning routine used to be, stupid and insane. And sometimes 3:30 a.m., 4:30 a.m. wake ups and all that kind of stuff. That stuff doesn't exist for me anymore. I am, I've done okay for myself. I don't have to do that. We talked about, Bezos. Bezos don't even do anything until 10:30 a.m. That guy hangs out all morning, as he should. He built, a lovely business for himself. I wake up typically around 6. I have a German Shepherd who lets me know, even when I want to sleep in, that he's, ready to rock and roll around 6:30. So take him out, hang out. I'm a strong, devout man of faith. So I spend with him, I make my coffee, I sit down in my office, and I do about an hour and a half of prayer. I study. So I read in the morning. And then I would say around, 8:30, I'll crack open my phone and my emails, and I will look at sales trends. I will look at what we're doing. I'll clear those out in about 15 minutes, make sure everybody's got what they need. And then I will, I have a 1.5-year-old. And so she wakes up and she'll find her way to my office. I'll hang out with her for a few minutes, say hello to my wife, and then I will go work out for myself. And then depending upon my workout is, I do, weights or cardio stuff. I train. I'm a hobbyist. It's nothing special, but I train MMA as well with a coach and a trainer. And so I'll get those things knocked out, and then I'll typically hit the office and do stuff by, real work, maybe 10:30.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, very
So
good.
it's pretty, yeah. And then Sundays, I go to mass and I watch, a race on television and hang out with the family. That's pretty much about it.
Yeah. Awesome. So if you could give just one piece of advice to the audience about how they could really move the needle on their health, what would it be?
Everyone's going to say start. And I think that needs to go unsaid. Like, you just got to start, right? But I think you need to come up with an actual schedule that you're willing to commit to. And if you're just starting, don't overdo it. There is you ever heard of Stryker Medical?
Yes.
Okay. I figured. I just wanted to make sure. Stryker Medical is a multi-billion dollar medical device company, right? Started by Bob Stryker. Bob Stryker has a phenomenal, he kind of coined his little speech. And I teach this to my sales guys to this day, every single time. It's called the 20-mile march. Okay. And what he would teach people is that if you were going to take two guys, Dave, if you and I were going to walk from, you're in Sarasota, I'm in Tampa. We'll start in Sarasota. I like Sarasota more anyway. We're going to walk from Sarasota to Seattle. Okay. You and me, we're just going to walk. And you walk the first day, you walk 100 miles, right? So you walk, I don't know, dude, if you're in Sarasota, you're going to be north of Tampa somewhere, whatever. It doesn't matter, right? So you walk 100 miles, but I only walk 20. The next day, you're going to be pretty fatigued, but you'll probably still get in about 80 miles. Okay, cool. You're at 180 miles. I'm just going to put in 20 and I'm going to stop. And I'm at 40. The next day, you're probably going to be able to do maybe 50. And what I'm getting at is that you're going to blow yourself out super early. Dude, you're never even going to make it out of Georgia if you're lucky. Okay. But if I just walk 20 miles a day and I commit every single day, no less, no more than 20 miles, I'll blow you out of the water by the time that I get to Seattle, and I'll be fine. You're going to be prone to injury. You're probably going to fall off and quit just from absolute fatigue, lack of motivation, lack of drive. I can do 20 miles all day long and I still got time to read books, drink coffee, hang out with my kid. If you commit to just 20 miles a day, you set up your workouts. It's not too much. It's not too little. It gets the job done. You commit to it. And it's something that you aren't dreading every day. You're not going to be destroyed every day. You'll get it done. And the workouts and the health and wellness protocols that are effective enough to get results, but easy enough to do every single day and you not dread it, are the ones that are going to blow every other program out of the water. And it's because of the consistency and not only the consistency, but the effectiveness and like what you actually pull into it. You can read, I'm looking at a bookshelf. There's all kinds of books on this wall. You can read every one of those books, but if you're just reading just to speed through and blast through to say you read a book, you're not going to retain any of the information. There's books on my shelf I'm looking at that I remember when I was young like that. I don't even remember what they're about. But the books that I would sit through, I would do 10 pages a day, write down notes, actually take physical notes with those. I can tell you everything about that book front to back, and I will forever. So to somebody just getting started out, really be specific about what your goal is, and then put in a plan of action that you can legitimately commit to. Everyone starts this, health and wellness journey, and they want to go way over the top. And that's awesome. I know what you're trying to do, and it's great. It's commendable. But if you can't keep up with it, it's worthless, because in 3 months, you're just right back where you started, if not worse off. So I know that was long-winded, but that's
love that. Yeah, love that, Dustin. Just so much about the sustainability, and that was why I wanted to ask the question around minimum and maximum effective dose, because you see kind of both ends to it. But consistency is key, right? And it's the same with investing. Right. If you can just invest systematically versus, everyone's waiting for that one silver bullet or to win the lottery or something like that. Right. It's not going to happen. But when you have a slow and systematic thing, you can be much more balanced. You can be holistic with all these things and actually, live such a better life.
Yeah. I talk about the silver bullet. I call him Superman. I've said this with sales guys a lot and with guys that come in and, everybody wants, and I'm telling you from experience, because I've had large failures, okay, with business ventures and things that I've created. And I'm lucky to say that the latest has been the opposite of that. But what I learned the difference is like, swinging for the fences is great. And eventually you might hit a home run. However, in baseball, okay, the guys that hit home runs, rarely but hit home runs don't actually have any careers. It's the guys that constantly always get base hits. And in business, it's great to land like a massive deal. And so we sell medical products, we sell them to national franchises, and they're our biggest customer. But what I always tell, so sales guys, they just want to go after these national franchises. And where that's great, that's awesome. But I'm telling you, hey, if you only sell this many a month and you just have this many of those clients, you're going to make double the amount of money. They're easier sales, they're faster sales, they stay longer, and they're compounding. It's the same thing of compounding interest. The base hits, whether it's your health and wellness programs, your business, those are compounding. It's compounding interest on those. And whether it's business or health or wellness, your results are going to be so much faster. Actually, it doesn't seem like it, like when you think about it from start point, but your results actually come 10 times faster than not. The base hits, the brick by brick mentality is the best way to do all this stuff. The waiting for Superman, the silver bullets, they just don't exist. They're not real. You will go broke or get fat way before they ever come into play. Yeah.
Such great pearls of wisdom, Dustin. Appreciate all the insights today. If people would like to learn more about you, learn more about BioPro, what's the best place?
The website and the social media, that's where we live. The website is bioproteintech.com, BioProteintech.com. The social media is great. It's all user-generated type stuff. You can see the type of work that we do, the people that use our products day to day, in and out, how they feel about them. So that's Instagram is the best place for that. And that's the same moniker, if you will, BioProtein Tech. So at BioProteintech. And, come join us. Come join our team. Interact. Ask questions. If you're looking for more information, there's tons of stuff on the frequently asked questions on the website. And if you need more information than that, or you want to be connected with a physician, DM us on the Instagram, and somebody there will give you a referral best we can.
Yeah, awesome. We'll definitely make sure we get the links in the show notes for that. And really thank you for your insights today, Dustin. I think it all starts with education, and the more, we can arm ourselves with the correct information, right, then we can start to take action and put that, system in place to be able to make progress. And I really applaud, your mission and what you're doing, trying to help people. That's in parallel with what we're trying to do. And it all starts again with that education, because if you don't know that your hormones are imbalanced, you don't know that why your health is off, it's eventually going to have some kind of issue is going to surface. So, being proactive with it is absolutely key. So keep up the good work.
Oh, thanks, Dave. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you having me on to run my mouth at you for about 50 minutes. And hopefully somebody somewhere got something out of this.
Some value. Yeah. No, appreciate it, Dustin. We'll talk soon. Thanks again.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Wealth Strategy Secrets. If you'd like to get a free copy of the book, go to holisticwealthstrategy.com. That's holisticwealthstrategy.com. If you'd like to learn more about upcoming opportunities at Pantheon, please visit pantheoninvest.com. That's pantheoninvest.com.